Changes what you putting me through. Ow! Y'all. I got some news for you. Okay, wait, let me go here. Let me acknowledge you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my lovely listeners. How are you? I hope you had a wonderful day. So, whatever side of the diaspora that you're on, whether it's morning, noon, or night, um, I just want to welcome you to this place that I like to call the mental house. Okay? And because it is so crazy that we have to make sure we stay in control of our mentals. Okay? We have to make sure we are constantly being reevaluated, doing self inventory, making a mental check on our thought process, because living with the devil and, and demons can definitely, um, you know, cause you to have a lot of stress in your life. So you have to make sure you, um, and in all seriousness, when you live in an oppressive system like this, you have to make sure you do everything to protect your mentals, everything. Okay. So with that being said, I thought this was really interesting because um, there was some women that went off tonight because there's Trump, his allies, the people he got, they just said, hey, they sights are on shutting down the FDIC. It's just that simple. So, a Washington Post columnist and economics uh, commentator jabbed President-elect Donald Trump late Friday on CNN and did so with a snarky apology. Catherine Rampell, who just one day earlier found herself in a spat with Republican strategist Scott Jennings, um, to kick off a discussion about reporting that Trump's allies are mulling plans to weaken or outright abolish banking regulations. This is including the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation and the Office of Comptroller of the Currency. The FDIC, considered one of the most critical banking regulators in the United States, runs deposit insurance, a program that compensates a bank's account holders up to 250,000 if the bank fails and is unable to dispense the money in their account. Created in 1933 at the height of the Great Depression, the program exists to prevent bank runs for cascading panics where banks account holders withdraw their money, in mass. Okay? Rampell shredded the plan but acknowledged that that's one way he could fulfill a campaign promise. I'd like to start by apologizing to our viewers because last night I was on one. I was on. You was on one, but I was on and I said Donald Trump had no plan for bringing down prices. But if in fact he wants to get rid of the FDIC and lay the groundwork for another Great Depression style, then that would do it. That's how you get deflation. And that's what happened during the Great Depression. So that's not something that I, I think should happen. Rampal called the notion unfathomable. It's just laying the groundwork for all sorts of financial instability, he said, later exclaiming. He said, we just had a banking crisis last year. Grandpa, you know what, y'all? We should all get together and sue. We should sue this federal government, especially during the 2008 housing crisis, which I got caught up in. I think we should find a way to put together a Class A lawsuit as civilians. I mean, and as many people were affected, as many people should put a B on Class A suit against these people. We need some pro bono attorneys to help organize and put this together, because I'm just sick of their asses. I'm just really sick of them. Okay, they got money for everything and everybody except regular people. Okay. Anyway, I done got off the track. Rand Paul then pushed back against Pete Seat, a former White House spokesman for President George Bush, who tried to insist the Journal report never explicitly stated Trump's team is considering doing away with the deposit insurance. Literally nowhere in this story he begins to say, as Rampart interrupts, in Wall Street, it's in and it does. No, it doesn't. It said that it would be absorbed by the Department of Treasury, says Seat, pointing specifically to the Journal's report that said also discussed plans to either combine or otherwise restructure the main federal bank regulations, the FDIC, OCC, and the Federal Reserve. They're asking questions, he insisted. They're trying to figure out the art of possible ways to deregulate the financial sector. Why is that a problem? Rand Paul acknowledged that while there is a patchwork of regulators, that's not what Trump allies are talking about. They're talking about rolling back regulations altogether, potentially getting rid of deposit insurance. That's how I read the story, she rebutted, adding, doing so would significantly have a risk to the financial system and the taxpayers in general. Rand Paul later crashed with Republican strategist Irene Perrine, who tried to assert no one on Trump's team is pursuing complete bank deregulations. Nowhere is that the case. Is that case even fathomable or something they're looking at? She said. But Rand Paul again interjected. Quit playing in my face. Read Project 2025, she shouted as the panel evolved into talking over each other. Perrine, fed up, pointed out that Trump has repeatedly distanced himself from the right-wing transition plan, which became the subject of scorn during his campaign. As host Abby Phillips desperately tried to regain control of the panel, Rand Paul shot back. You're saying the Wall Street Journal has published clickbait? They clashed again shortly thereafter, and when Rand Paul explained, I don't think Donald Trump has a mandate to crash the banking system, responding to a common Republican talking point, that Trump won by such a large margin that he's essentially obligated to install even the most fringe ideas in the MAGA agenda. Well, Perrine got really mad after that, and she hit back again. As a matter of fact, let me because this was really wild to me. Um, let me set this up.
CNN panel spirals out of control over Trump team threat to crash the banking system by Daniel Hampton. A Washington Post columnist and economics commentator jabbed President-elect Donald Trump late Friday on CNN and did so with a snarky apology. Catherine Rampell, who just a day earlier found herself in a spat with Republican strategist Scott Jennings, joined CNN's Newsnight to kick off a discussion about reporting that Trump's allies are mulling plans to weaken or outright abolish bank regulators, including the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation and Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. The FDIC, considered one of the most critical banking regulators in the United States, runs deposit insurance, a program that compensates a bank's account holders up to $250,000 if the bank fails and is unable to dispense the money in their account. Created in 1933 at the height of the Great Depression, the program exists to prevent bank runs or cascading panics where banks' account holders withdraw their money en masse. Rampell shredded the plan, but acknowledged that's one way he could fulfill a campaign promise. I'd like to start by apologizing to our viewers because last night I was on and I said Donald Trump had no plan for bringing down prices. But if in fact he wants to get rid of the FDIC and lay the groundwork for another Great Depression-style bank run, that would do it, she said. That's how you get deflation. That's what happened during the Great Depression. Rampell called the notion unfathomable. It's just laying the groundwork for all sorts of financial instability.
Well, we already know that. We already know that that's laying the groundwork for all types of I mean, that's just a complete crash. It's a crash out. And so for those, everybody got the money in their banking on at least having $250,000 of their money insured. Kiss that goodbye.
Catherine, what do you make of this? This caught my eye.
Yeah, so I want to start by apologizing to our viewers because last night I was on and I said Donald Trump had no plan for bringing down prices. But if, in fact, he wants to get rid of the FDIC and lay the groundwork for another Great Depression-style bank run, that would do it. You know, that's how you get deflation. That's what happened during the Great Depression. And in fact, the reason we have the FDIC is because we had these It's a Wonderful Lifestyle bank runs back in the 30s when people panicked because they weren't sure that their deposits would be safe and everybody else was going and pulling their deposits out. It was a miraculous intervention. It's been useful for all of the many years since. And I just think it's like unfathomable that they would consider abolishing it now. It's just laying the groundwork for all sorts of financial instability.
Yeah. So Janet Yellen, she's the Treasury Secretary, she said this about it to Reuters. The lesson we learned from those 100 plus years of history is that banks need to be supervised and regulated appropriately to greatly mitigate the odds of failure. That deposit insurance is critical. It's a critical element in promoting safety and soundness and confidence in the system, and that there needs to be adequate access to liquidity when banks get in trouble. I was shocked that this was controversial. I didn't know that people were trying to get rid of.
We just had a banking crisis last year.
Now listen, the country is in the hands of real thieves and bandits. They not even ashamed of it no more. They done took the hoods off. They letting you know, and you already know Donald Trump and money how they love to he steals. Okay, so the fact of the matter is, you got these bandits and thieves up in there, and do you actually think that they will have some kind of moral compass? I mean, it's also diabolically crazy. Okay? So y'all better pay attention to this. You know, well, those of y'all who got some money in the bank. You know, they not even going to insure any of it at the end of the day. Listen.
I was surprised.
But where in the story does it say they want to get rid of the deposit insurance? Literally nowhere in this story.
It says... Journal, it does.
No, it doesn't. It said that it would be absorbed by the Department of Treasury And it says in the 10th paragraph, we're all treating this like a 5-alarm fire, but right there it says, quote, also discuss plans to either combine or otherwise restructure the main federal bank regulations or regulators, the FDIC, OCC, and Federal Reserve. They're asking questions. They're trying to figure out the art of the possible to deregulate the financial sector. Why is that a problem?
The hard part of the FDIC is not taking in the premium, the insurance premiums and paying them out. It's conducting the supervision to make sure that the banks behave themselves. It is true that our financial system has this patchwork of regulatory agencies, and there's regulatory arbitrage going on, and it'd be better if it were streamlined. That's not what they're talking about. They're talking about rolling back regulations altogether, potentially getting rid of deposit insurance. That is how I read that story. And again, creating a lot more instability and risk in the financial system and putting more risk on the backs of taxpayers, frankly, because you can bet that if any of Trump's friends on Wall Street go belly up, they're still going to demand a rescue, whether or not they submitted to the burdensome regulations and deposit insurance that we currently have.
I think the deregulation is a huge part of the story too, because I understand, obviously, conservatives have wanted to deregulate broadly, writ large, right? And there are a lot of policy reasons why they might want to do that, and some of them are valid. But when it comes to banks specifically, we just went through this, okay? We had 3 of the largest bank failures in U.S. history have happened in the last 20 years, okay? Including, as Catherine pointed out, just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, last year. Last year it was the biggest set of bank failures in history. It was like $500 billion worth of assets.
So it feels like we are not out of the woods when it comes to banks really needing oversight, and consumers, just regular people. We're not talking millionaires and billionaires, just regular people with $20,000 maybe in their bank, keeping that money safe.
Well, I think that Pete's point is completely correct here, that nowhere in these stories does it say that they want to get rid of the deposit insurance here. So let's take this deep breath. And even if we're being extremely speculative about what could or would or might happen or what they might be thinking, until someone says it for the Trump administration, this is purely political fodder for a setting like this and not something that we believe they're actually seriously pursuing.
It's in Project 2025. It's literally in that document.
I mean this with all due respect. I don't know how many more times Donald Trump can say, I don't want anything to do with that, and disavow it.
The people who wrote that playbook are running his transition team, and they're the ones who are trying to lay the groundwork for this.
Do you know what kind of banking part of the banking regulatory reform that Republicans have pursued consistently in Congress has been more focused on local small community banks so that they can stay open and thrive, especially for farming-based communities. That has been a long background in Republicans when it comes to regulatory reform. But what we are talking about here is more political fear-mongering than reality when it comes to what's happening with the Trump transition. And it's political. No one's
wrote it correctly. Everyone else is just reading what they want to hear.
It's in Project 2025.
And he has said he's
Does
not
that say
doing
Trump
that
agenda at the top? It doesn't.
Pretty much. It's all of his staffers.
Speculative.
So
it's all of his
he said
staffers.
in the
Personnel
Time
is
Magazine
policy.
interview again that he wants nothing to do with the Project 2025 agenda.
You could have fooled me from all of the things he has already
So
announced.
Donald Trump ran as this working class champion and won in large part based on that theory. But what we have seen already since his election last month is policy proposal after policy proposal that would actually do harm to working class people here in the United States of America. And the prospect of complete deregulation throughout our financial system,
No one's asking for
which
that.
is what this would be an example
We're
of.
speculating to
This
that.
is just
Complete deregulation. Don't be ridiculous.
Guys, one second, okay? Are you finished?
I mean, Elon Musk has said he would be willing to crash the economy and start from scratch.
But nobody, to be completely
Elon
fair,
Musk
for
is
what
like
you
his
just said,
god.
for what you just said was that they are pursuing complete bank deregulation. Nowhere is that any case even fathomable or something they are looking at.
Just
read Project 2025.
Just give them more time. They're not going to do it all in one day.
Mondare, just a second.
Are you saying
let me
the Wall
ask you a
Street Journal
question.
just published
Catherine,
clickbait?
hang on a second. Let me ask you a question.
I'm
Erin.
saying that people are being wildly speculative at this
When it
stage.
comes to taking the regulatory system that we have now and shrinking, when it comes to banks, right? Shrinking it, restructuring it, in wholly. A lot of people who work in this industry say that is a bad idea on its face. It's going to create instability, it's going to create uncertainty, and that is not what the economy needs right now. Do you find that to be an argument that has any merit?
It's very easy for the financial system to get spooked. But also, it's also very important that there be change in the United States. It's what the people voted for.
Is this really
There's a
an
way
area
to
where
balance
we are
both,
desperate
though.
for change? I mean, that's
I don't think Donald Trump has a mandate to crash the banking system.
Well, good news, that's not what he's trying to do. And the unbelievable level that I have heard at this table of just speculation and ridiculous fear-mongering
I cover this
about
stuff.
something that isn't being talked about, isn't a serious policy proposal. Nobody is talking about complete bank deregulation. Be honest with the American people. They're looking at streamlining and looking at efficiencies. Nothing has been proposed and nothing is happening. Deep breaths.
Okay, deep breath all aside. What doesn't make any sense to me, and this goes back to the polio conversation, is why they keep allowing these conversations to happen in the first place, knowing the potential consequences, of having alarm in the banking system, alarm in the healthcare system. Why does the Trump administration, the Trump transition team allow this to happen? The other thing is, this story reminds me of two childhood memories. One is about Lucy and Charlie Brown, and the other's about Monopoly. And the story of Lucy, where she's always pulling up the football when Charlie Brown's trying to kick it. I feel like we're going through the same thing over and over again. It's like we went through this in the 1920s and 1930s with the bank failures, and we created the Glass-Steagall Act. We went through this after the 1990s when they deregulated and the Clinton administration and put in the Graham-Bleach-Lowry Act, and then we had a banking crisis in 2008. We went through this and we created the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Now they want to eliminate the Consumer Financial Protection
all
Bureau.
of Dodd-Frank.
And all of that. So we keep making the same mistake and allowing the banks to do what they want. And the other memory is the monopoly, because we're giving the banks a get out of jail free card. Just let them do whatever they want and run roughshod over the consumers who really were supposed to be, as Mondaire pointed out, the reason why Trump said he was running in the first place. Whatever happened to talk about inflation? Whatever happened to talk about the working class people? They're getting billionaires and trillionaires coming in, flying into Mar-a-Lago to try to help out Donald Trump. You got people who are giving millions of dollars to his inauguration who have billions of dollars. How is this the helping
That is a perfect segue. That's a perfect segue for us to move on to what's going to come next in the Catherine.
What y'all think about that? Okay, y'all. Not trying to fear monger or any of that. The fear is already in place. I want to speak to specifically black folk and allies. Okay, I'm not interested in any of you MAGA's opinion. I'm not interested in any of that. I want to know from us, what are we going to do collectively? What are we doing collectively to get a grip on and a hold on some of these things that Donald Trump got prepared for us? Okay? Growing and canning and things like that, that's one aspect, okay, in terms of what they're going to do in terms of shutting down the food crisis. Making it a food crisis. But when you start talking about the FDIC, what proposed ideas do you think will be beneficial to us in this particular time? Do you run and get your money out the bank? Do you make sure, do you do like grandmama and them did? Hide in the TV or whatever. You get what I'm saying? What should be the people's next move? Cause I'm here for the people. I'm part of humanity. I'm not part of this craziness. And those of us who are part of humanity and don't have a lot of financial backing or any of those things, what can we do to protect ourselves? Those are the only things that I'm interested in. I don't know. What say you? Y'all got any ideas out there? If you do, if you like what you hear, please like, subscribe, and share. Engage. Tell me your opinion. I'm really looking forward to responding to you and with you. So leave your comment below. They talking about this guy might try to abolish the FDIC. What kind of madness? I wouldn't put it past him. I'm telling y'all, we got some serious days ahead, and I don't think it's fear mongering. I think it's prepared. It's called being proactive instead of reactive. Okay? All right. I love y'all for real. And I'll see y'all in the next video.